Today we are going to discuss a question from class 11 history, chapter 7, that is changing cultural traditions. So the question is, write a careful account of how the world appeared different to 17th century Europeans. Answer: by the end of the 17th century, the world had stepped into the modern age. This was the age of modern and rational thinking, an age that questioned old ideas and beliefs. These new thoughts enabled man to see the world in an entirely different light than what he did before. The world in the 17th century was very different from the bygone 16th century. So, here we come to know that in the 16th century, the old ideas or beliefs were prevalent, and the world of the 17th century was very different from the world of the 16th century. In the 17th century, the people had rational thinking. By rational thinking, we mean the thinking and the ability to consider the relevant variable of a situation and to access and organize and analyze relevant information. So, in the 17th century, people started thinking rationally. They started reasoning out. They started differentiating between different events and they started reasoning out and they started differentiating, and which means they started rationalizing. So people started thinking in a rational way, which means the old beliefs which were prevalent during the 16th century were all discarded and new ideas were adopted. The world of the 16th century was very regressive, while the world of the 17th century was progressive due to rational thinking. Evolution of modern science and philosophy. The 17th century has often been referred to as the age of scientific revolution. Scientific finds of this period changed the way men perceived the world. The age of scientific revolution moved a step ahead from the preceding age of enlightenment by explaining the relationship of man with nature. Men like Rene Descartes, a philosopher, and Isaac Newton, mathematician, went ahead the authority of medieval intellectuals such as Galen, Aristotle, and Plato. All available ideas of the medieval age has to pass through the litmus test of doubt to be established as truth. This new idea of the truth created a world that was very different from what existed earlier. This idea of skepticism was determining factor that led to questioning of the church authority too. So, the 17th century was a period of scientific innovations and revolution. In this period, many scientific developments took place because during this period, all men started thinking rationally. They started reasoning out. During the 16th century, the 16th century was the age of enlightenment, means age of enlightenment is also known as the age of reasoning. It was the age of intellectual and philosophical move that dominated the world of ideas in Europe during the 16th century. Now the age of 16th century was the age of enlightenment, while during the age of 17th century, it was the world of scientific revolution. During 16th century, the thinkers and philosophers like Aristotle and Plato, whatever they discovered, they had the theories and their discoveries had to pass through a litmus test, and it was not their discoveries and their findings were not approved until they were approved by the utmost authority, that is the church. Their findings could be approved as being the fact only if the church authority approved it. But during the 17th century, with scientific revolution and innovation, the discoveries or the inventions which were made, they did not require any approval from the church, and they were regarded as the truth. Age of military revolution. The 17th century has also been referred to as the period of military revolution of the pre-modern age. The zeal for colonization led the Dutch, English, French, Spanish and Portuguese to fight repeated wars in the colonies and in the Europe too. This fostered the spirit for technological military inventions which could assure an upper hand in the wars. Thus, the 17th century can be regarded as a big leap from ignorance to awareness for the Europeans. The European world was more progressive than in the past century. So, 17th century was also the age of military revolution. During this age, the Dutch, English, French and Spanish, they started making the countries of the Asia their colonies. Now, there was a competition between the Dutch, English, French and Spanish to make the countries of Asia their colonies. Now, with the enhancing competition, they required new military tools or new military weapons to capture as much as lands they want. Now, due to this competition, innovations in the field of military tools took place, which further accelerated the technological innovations in the field of military inventions. So, to conclude, we find that the age of 16th century was the age of ignorance, while the age of 17th century was the age of rational thinking and progressive thinking and scientific development. Thank you. For such content, please subscribe to Intellify.